CJ Flyer back with another YouTube video. Today going over the updated list of top 5 teams to join for each position in NBA 2K26 MyCareer after the 2026 trade deadline. Now of course, once again, this list is going to be subjective, so let me know whether or not you agree in the comment section down below. Now without further ado, getting started with the point guard position, I have none other than the Milwaukee Bucks. Now of course, the Bucks had a lot of drama going on leading up to the trade deadline this year, with Giannis possibly leaving the team, demanding a trade out. However, he ended up staying with the Bucks this time around, and if you made a point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks, you could have a dynamic duo with Giannis running the pick and roll, and that is why I have them at number 5. Alright, the 4th best team to join as a point guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks, of course, recently traded away Trae Young, which opens up a gap in the point guard position. You do see here on the roster that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is listed as a point guard, same with CJ McCollum. However, they can easily shift down to the shooting guard or small forward position. And of course, there's been huge improvement in recent weeks from Jalen Johnson. And of course, you also have the center Okongwu on this roster. And then let's not forget about some more recent additions as well. You got Kuminga, Buddy Hield, and Kispert, so you can have some shooting off the bench. The 3rd best team to join as a point guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Miami Heat. Now the Heat didn't actually make any moves leading up to the trade deadline. However, in the first roster for NBA 2K26, Tyler Herro's primary position was listed as point guard, and now it's been transitioned over to shooting guard, so a point guard here would make perfect sense. You'd have your MyCareer at the point, you'd have Tyler Herro at the shooting guard, Norman Powell at the small forward, Andrew Wiggins at the power forward, and Bam Adebayo at the center. And of course, you got Ware off the bench, you got Jaime Jaquez Jr. off the bench, some quality players to play with as well. Alright, and for the 2nd best team to join as a point guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have the Utah Jazz. They made some big moves leading up to the trade deadline, including none other than the acquisition of Jaren Jackson Jr. So now in the starting lineup, you have Lauri Markkanen, who could fill in at the 3. You got Jaren Jackson at the 4. You got Walker Kessler at the 5. This team could use some better guards. It's already got plenty of bigs. Yes, Keontae George is on this roster. Yes, he's 87 overall. Yes, his primary position is a point guard. However, I still think as far as playing MyCareer goes, it makes more sense to make a point guard in this situation with all of these bigs to pass to rather than a shooting guard. And Keontae George, once again, he can get shifted down to shooting guard, no problem. Alright, and the best team to join as a point guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they didn't make any significant moves. They still got Anthony Edwards at the shooting guard, Julius Randle at the power forward, you got Rudy Gobert at the center, you got McDaniels at small forward, you got Naz Reid off the bench, you got DiVincenzo off the bench, who is more of a shooting guard / small forward in my opinion. There is of course Ayo that was acquired from the Bulls, and then Mike Conley will eventually be back on this roster. He's not on the 2K rosters right now, but yes, Minnesota is planning to re-sign him and put him back on this roster after being traded twice before the deadline. But of course, Mike Conley is very old. He's a vet. He's considered more of a backup role at this point, especially if you have a MyCareer player that is a star level talent. Okay, on to the shooting guards. The 5th best team to join as a shooting guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Washington Wizards, who made some crazy moves leading up to the trade deadline here in real life. You got, of course, none other than the trade to get Anthony Davis on this roster, which, of course, in real life, very injury prone, but in the world of NBA 2K, he's a very great player, of course, and he's not necessarily as injury prone. You got Trae Young at the point guard position. You got Alex Sarr, a young big man. All in all, creating a shooting guard to join the Wizards could form some sort of a big 3 with Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Alright, for the 4th best team to join as a shooting guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Dallas Mavericks, who of course just traded away Anthony Davis, who we just talked about being with the Wizards. The Mavs now have Kyrie Irving at the point guard. He's, of course, getting up there in age regarding NBA players. He's a vet. He's 33 years old. You got up-and-coming rookie Cooper Flagg, who's been nothing short of tremendous in real life recently. And then you have a bunch of lower-rated role players in Najee Marshall, in Max Christie, in PJ Washington, Klay Thompson, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. This team could definitely use an elite shooter on the roster, and so that is why I suggest creating a shooting guard to join the Dallas Mavericks. Alright, the third best team to join as a shooting guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Detroit Pistons, who have been exceptionally well here in real life. Number 1 in the Eastern Conference, balling out. Cade Cunningham, the best player on this team at the point guard position. You got Jalen Duren at the center. You got Thompson. You got Harris. A shooting guard would fit in right well. The highest shooting guard listed on this roster is Duncan Robinson. So of course, creating a build that is able to be an elite shooting talent to go on this Pistons roster would fill it out nicely and easily make them a championship contender right off the bat. Alright, the second best team to join as a shooting guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Indiana Pacers, who of course in real life are currently struggling this season, but they did just recently make a trade, trading away Benedict Mathurin and getting in return from the Clippers Zubac, a starting center. That was a desperate need for this Pacers roster, is getting a quality center after they lost Miles Turner in the summer last year. So now, once Halliburton comes back, of course, you got Halliburton, you got Siakam, and you got Zubac. What's missing from this starting lineup? Of course, an elite shooting talent, so a shooting guard would fit well on this roster. And the number 1 team to join as a shooting guard in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Denver Nuggets. Of course, you've got Jokic, the starting center, an MVP candidate. You got Jamal Murray at the point, and then you got some forwards, and the best rated shooting guard on this roster is a veteran Tim Hardaway Jr. And as a Mavs fan, let me tell you, you should be able to take that starting spot without much of a problem. And of course, joining the Nuggets as an elite shooting talent, you are going to round out this starting 5 and easily be a championship contender from the very first season. On to the small forward position, the 5th best team to join as a small forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer. I've got the Washington Wizards again, similar to what I was saying before with the Wizards as a shooting guard. Joining them as a small forward, you could form a big 3 with Anthony Davis and Trae Young, the new acquisitions by the Washington Wizards. And while in real life that might seem kind of silly, of course, in NBA 2K, the players are not quite as injury prone, generally speaking, and forming a big 3 like that, it could easily be a championship contender right off the get-go. Alright, the 4th best team to join as a small forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Philadelphia 76ers, who just recently traded away Jared McCain. They have Tyrese Maxey, they've got Joel Embiid, they've got Paul George, who in real life just got suspended for a number of games for violating the league's anti-drug policy. You got VJ Edgecombe, another guard on this roster. And the highest rating small forward on the roster is 30-year-old Kelly Oubre Jr. at 78 overall. So it shouldn't be much of a problem getting into this starting lineup with your build. And you could form a nice little big 3 with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Alright, the 3rd best team to join as a small forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Los Angeles Lakers. Luka Doncic at the point guard position. You got LeBron, who can fill in at the 3 or the 4. You got Austin Reeves at the 2. And then, of course, you've got DeAndre Ayton. And then the highest rating small forward on this roster is Rui Hachimura. So you should be able to jump into that starting lineup without much of an issue. And we're not talking about forming a big 3 here. We're talking about forming a big 4. Now, the reason I don't have the Lakers as the number 1 choice is because they, of course, don't have a ton of depth on this roster, as we've been able to see in real life. But forming a big 4 in LA with the Lakers in MyCareer should be very competitive, should make you a championship contender right off the bat. Alright, the 2nd best team to join as a small forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Cleveland Cavaliers, who just recently traded Darius Garland away for James Harden, forming a lineup of Donovan Mitchell and James Harden at the 1 and the 2 interchangeably. You got Tyson at the 3, you got Mobley at the 4, and you got Allen at the 5. Now, as great as Tyson has been playing in real life, with whatever you builds you're making, as long as you got high enough overall, you shouldn't have much of an issue getting into the starting lineup. And then, of course, Tyson can be your backup which as far as backups go, not too shabby. And then Cleveland, of course, has some great shooting talent off the bench and some playmaking in Dennis Schroeder, Max Strus, and Keon Ellis. All in all, making this a very well-rounded roster and a championship contender right off the bat. And the number one team to join as a small forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have, once again, the Indiana Pacers. I had mentioned them previously as the second best team to join as a shooting guard, now mentioning them as the best team to join as a small forward, for pretty much the same reason as before. The only slight variation here, and the reason I have them as number one instead of number two, is because there are quite a few guards on this roster. But now with having a small forward, you can easily get into that starting lineup and you can allow some of that other quality guard talent to play at the shooting guard position like Nembhard and TJ McConnell. All right, on to the power forward position, the fifth best team to join as a power forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer. I have none other than the Portland Trail Blazers. Their best rated power forward is an 82 overall, which is of course not too shabby, but if you look at the rest of the roster, they've got three guards right there. Those three guards, of course, being Damian Lillard, Shaedon Sharpe, and Drew Holiday. You've got some decent bigs, young and upcoming bigs, Donovan Clingan. You got Robert Williams III. And then criminally underrated is Young Hansen. That being said, a power forward would fit very well onto this roster. All right, the fourth best team to join as a power forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I once again have the Philadelphia 76ers for very much the same reasons as I had for joining as a small forward. You can form a big three with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Paul George could fill in at the 3 instead of as primary position at the 4. You got VJ Edgecombe still. You got Kelly Oubre off the bench. Quentin Grimes off the bench. Drummond is a great rebounder off the bench. All in all, a decent roster to join as a power forward and forming a big 3. All right, the third best team to join as a power forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the New York Knicks. So, of course, the Knicks, at their starting power forward position, they have Josh Hart, which, don't get me wrong, great player, great rebounder, but he's very short, especially for the power forward position, which doesn't play out very well in NBA 2K, especially this year in NBA 2K26, where height means a lot as far as contesting shots. And so for that reason alone, being a power forward, creating a power forward build, and joining the New York Knicks is a great option to form a solid starting lineup of Jalen Brunson at the 1, Mikal Bridges at the 2, OG Anunoby at the 3, your player at the 4, and Karl Anthony Towns at the 5. All right, and the second best team to join as a power forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Dallas Mavericks, who of course just traded away the star power forward of Anthony Davis due to all of his injury issues, not being able to play in many games at all, under 30 games in a year. Now, of course, when he was playing, he fit pretty well onto this roster with this cast of crew members. And so having a Anthony Davis build or some other type of good power forward build to fit onto the Dallas Mavericks roster, of course, you'd be paired up with Kyrie Irving, with Cooper Flagg, and then still allowing some of that other talent like the young centers, Derek Lively and Gafford, to fill in at the center position while your player is playing at the power forward. And the best team to join as a power forward in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the San Antonio Spurs. Now, of course, some of these forwards that you see listed here could fill in at the power forward position. However, as far as players with their primary position as power forward, the highest rated player that the Spurs have is Harrison Barnes at 77 overall. And the reason I have Spurs number 1 is because, of course, of Victor Wembanyama, and arguably you could create any position and join the Spurs and have tons of success just by playing with Wembanyama. The reason I don't mention it for the other positions is just because you already have a high-rated point guard in De'Aaron Fox, you have a high-rated shooting guard in Stephon Castle. Devin Vassell is a quality young small forward on this roster too. And of course, Wembanyama already plays the center position as his primary position. And even if you create a center, unless they are going to be at least 7 feet 4 inches or taller, they're going to automatically get shifted to the power forward position more often than not anyways. So you're better off just creating a power forward to join the Spurs and be able to play with all this top talent all at once on the court at the same time. All right, on to the center position, the 5th best team to join as a center in NBA 2K26 MyCareer. I have none other than the Chicago Bulls, who I don't know what their GM was doing leading up to the trade deadline. They made a ton of trades seemingly for the sake of making trades. They did acquire a ton of second-round picks, but now they just have a bunch of mid-level to decent talent level guards. But like their best center is Jalen Smith, who is 6'8" tall. I'm not really sure what the Bulls were doing here exactly, but nonetheless, it makes them a great option to join as a center in my career mode. You got Josh Giddey, 23 years old, 85 overall. You got Buzelis at the power forward, small forward position. You got Jones, you got Anthony Simons, you got Colin Sexton, you got Jaden Ivey. I mean, you got some good young talent here. You got some decent guards, like I said. Just not a lot in the way of bigs, and the bigs are not very tall, so it makes it a prime candidate to join this team as a center. All right, the fourth best team to join as a center in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Los Angeles Clippers, who just traded away their primary center, Zubac, to the Indiana Pacers. They got Benedict Mathurin in return. So now they got Darius Garland at the 1. You got Kawhi at the 3. You got Mathurin probably filling in at the 2, I guess. Collins at the 4. And that leaves you with a bit of a hole at the center position. The best rated center on this roster is Isaiah Jackson, followed by Brook Lopez. Yeah, definitely a good team to join as a center, to be able to possibly run some pick and roll with Garland, to be able to box out, get some boards for this team. All right, the third best team to join as a center in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Boston Celtics. Now, of course, the Celtics did just trade for a center leading up to the trade deadline. However, that center is 35-year-old Vucevic. I don't see him as much of a long-term option. He's a good offensive player, not the best rim protector, so a center here would still be a great fit. Of course, you got Peyton Pritchard and Derek White at the guard positions. You got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, the Jays, at the forward positions. That leaves you with a hole at the center position that you could fill in with a star-level MyPlayer build. All right, the second best team to join as a center in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, I have none other than the Los Angeles Lakers yet again. We got Luka, we got LeBron, we got DeAndre Ayton, but DeAndre Ayton is, in real life, he's hit or miss. He's got some good games here, he's got some pretty bad games there. And being able to take over for him and forming that big four in LA with the other 3 players, all in all, it would be a great fit, and the Lakers could use some better rim protection and some better rebounding. All right, last but definitely not least, the number 1 team to join as a center in NBA 2K26 MyCareer, a team that has been on a bit of a hot streak in real life recently, the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets have been on an absolute tear. They got LaMelo Ball at the point guard position. You got Brandon Miller at the 2. You got Knipple at the 3, who is shooting lights out here and there. He's definitely, at worst, the runner-up for Rookie of the Year this season. You got Miles Bridges at the power forward. Of course, you got Kobe White coming off the bench, who is a great option as well. He was starting for the Bulls. And so the one missing piece to this roster that could use some improvement is, of course, the center position, and that's where your MyPlayer build comes in. Now, if you're someone that also likes to do MyNBA rebuilds, go ahead and click the video on your left to see a list of top 5 teams to rebuild in NBA 2K26 MyNBA. Otherwise, click the video on your right for another NBA 2K26 tutorial video.